Is it the Annette Francis interview thing going on at a minute in, Brent?
Yeah.
We are now live, though.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and their Allies. My name is Brent Frayne. I'm the host, and today we have our roundtable number 5. Please subscribe to Neil Matheson's YouTube channel and stay up to date on your favorite podcast, where you find it on Spotify or any of your favorite apps where you find it convenient to you. Today, I have a wide range of guests that are on our panel here that we have every Monday for our roundtable affordability discussions. We have another roundtable that I've proposed out also about government accountability. Working on some other roundtables that over time that we'll be launching. Is it transit, about housing, you name it. But today, this is our roundtable we have every Monday, so join us for our show on Mondays. And if you're watching live, spread the word right now to your friends and family, caregivers, whoever it may be.
And there, I saw that your pink unicorn.
It just magically appeared. Oh, look at that, right? Oh, isn't that funny how it just pops up, right? A pink unicorn. Yeah. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the show, and to all my participants today. It's always a great pleasure having you all join us on our great discussions of affordability. And we also have a video that we're going to be broadcasting on here. Hopefully there's no technicalities. And it's from Senator Kim Pate. And it's evolving around the guaranteed livable basic income. Now, MJ, I think you're queued up to put that on.
So I'm gonna see if I can change the view.
Not just yet.
Not yet? Okay. Just let me know.
I just want to make sure that I've got the right interview and the timing right.
Okay. In the meantime, I just want to go around and I just. Everyone that's on today. Jennifer's joining us in today too. Hello, Jennifer.
She's muted right now.
Oh,
she's been popping in and out. I don't know if she's had technical issues or not.
Hi. Technical issues with connection.
Oh, yeah. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
It's always nice to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. I think you'll find it really informative of our discussions that we have. And, as long as you're able to join us today, I know that you might be able to stay for the whole segment or maybe an hour or stay as long as you need to. You'll find it very informative, and you definitely jump into the discussion as you feel you need to.
In progress.
Yeah, it keeps on kicking me out for some reason.
Oh.
I promise it's not me.
It wasn't me. It was the pink unicorn here.
It's the pink unicorn.
He has magic. His magic wand.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
it
is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kicked me out 2 or 3 times already. So.
I don't know what that is.
No.
It's
It's Elon's fault, Jennifer. It's Elon's fault.
I know, but we're on Zoom, so that's got nothing to do with Elon, right?
No. He has his magic people that make their way in.
Yeah.
So what the discussion here today is about poverty, or is it to be specifically about the UBC?
It's all about poverty rates. It's about income inequality. So it's kind of intertwined with poverty, lifting people way above the poverty level, like a livable income, shall we say? There's different progress. Yes, it's on different viewpoints on how to get to that level. I mean, MJ has some great ideas too on that. Joseph, everybody does, and it's about accountability. It's about holding governments to account for all the inequalities. Just providing people with the standard of income that they need. So yeah, I mean, lifting people out of poverty for sure. I find it very fascinating how governments always say, well, we're lifting people out of poverty, we're giving child tax credits, we're giving GST, we're giving one lump sum payments quarterly. Well,
in progress.
So were we going to cover government accountability, or?
Yeah, we can actually go into that.
Or is that going to be a separate roundtable?
That will be a separate panel that we will be creating, but we can definitely touch on that. And then
I put that in the description, so
Yeah.
I'll have to edit it later. But
no, it's all good. Yeah, no, it's great because I think we should cover that. And then what we'll do is we're going to make a roundtable. So anyone who wants to join on that roundtable also on a different day, definitely, spread the word because I think that it's important to cover that topic too. So make different topics and gets people more grouped together and discussing the issues and approaches on how to hold government to account. So we'll, I guess, should we, what do you think, Neil? Do you think we should start with that topic first?
Well, we could do, I've got everybody pinned now, but I could unpin them and have MJ pinned full screen if you want to do that first. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah, okay.
Except for one problem here is screen sharing is still disabled.
Oh, so I have to be the one that enables it, right?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
It should be under security settings.
Under security, yeah, okay.
Security.
Yeah. Oh, there's share screen. I've enabled it now. It should be showing as enabled. So yeah, maybe what I'll do is I'll unpin everyone. 1 second. Remove pin.
Okay.
Remove pin.
Yeah, having these discussions definitely are. I mean, it's so important to have different viewpoints on affordability, but also accountability, and that's something that we're going to. We're just going to briefly dive into, and we'll expand on that more on a different roundtable. But today's session will be about the affordability, definitely, and poverty.
Okay, so I have MJ full screen now. So
okay.
I think the share screen will bring up a separate screen, so you don't want to have me pin.
Oh, really? Okay.
Screen. Yes. Zoom is different than other things where it replaces it. So I'm just going to go and share the screen.
1 second.
Okay.
Nation to nation,
There we go.
Okay, so everyone, so here's the interview that Kim Pate had with a reporter, and it's regarding the guaranteed livable basic income. Just recent interview that Senator Kim Pate had, and so here we go. And listen in, and if you're viewing live today, definitely send in your comments under the comments section. And if you're listening, definitely reach out to Neil. And if you want to join in on the show and be part of our panel on affordability, or you want to join in about the government accountability, we're going to do sessions on transit, housing affordability, whole bunch of topics. So here we go. Thanks, MJ.
Francis. No one would argue we're in hard times when it comes to finances. It's tough to budget with the cost of keeping a roof over your head, food in your belly, and bills to pay. That's why Senator Kim Pate sponsored Bill S-233, which proposes the development of a national framework for guaranteed livable basic income. It's currently being studied by the Senate Finance Committee. If passed, it would require Canada's finance minister to develop a national framework for implementing a guaranteed livable basic income program. Senator Kim Pate joins us now. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you. It's wonderful to join you from here on the shores of the Kitchissippi in the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe.
What exactly is a guaranteed livable income and how is it different from welfare?
So one of the big reasons that I introduced a bill to talk about this is to say we should have the discussion about what kind of model we should look at. So first of all, that's what the bill does. It doesn't actually say we'll have a guaranteed livable income, even though personally I would like to start there. But what we're talking about is basically an income that goes out to folks when they need it, whether it's because they're sick, because they can't work, because they're wanting to train to get a better job or to go to school, and that it doesn't have the same moralistic approach that social assistance does right now, or welfare, where you have to prove that you're entitled to it, you have to prove that you deserve it, you have to test every piece. It's basically saying that if you're under a certain income, then you should be entitled to have these resources. We know that everywhere that it has been tried, it has both saved money and allowed people to rebound out of poverty. And so we're also talking about livable. So when I say guaranteed livable, I mean not what social assistance is right now, because in every province and territory in this country, the amount of money provided on social assistance is not livable. You can't survive on it. And so it makes everybody what I call infinitely criminalizable, that people are doing things that if they were monitored, if they were followed, if they were prosecuted, could end up criminalized for, and that's wrong. That's really, shows the stigma and the attitudes that basically are about being against poor people. And what we know from Dr. Zhao, who testified at the Senate committee about Bill S-233, is that when you actually provide money to people who are living in poverty, guess what? They spend it in their communities. They pay rent, they buy food, they clothe themselves, they maybe get stuff for their kids. But contrary to the myths and the stereotypes that are out there, predominantly, held by people with money, quite frankly, who have never been, in a situation where they're poor or struggling to make ends meet, is that somehow if you give money to poor people, that they'll waste it. And what her research shows that, in fact, when you provide more resources, enough for people to live on, two main things happen. People get housed, they get fed, and they get out of poverty faster, they get out of homelessness faster, and they're less likely to spend money on things like drugs and alcohol.
How much would a program like this cost?
All right. So it depends on the model, and the parliamentary budget officer also testified and said that the net cost, so after taking into account the savings for other services, and this is not including long-term, would probably cost about $3 billion. The overall price tag is closer to 70 or 75 billion. But when you take into account, things like what is spent now on social assistance, what is spent on some of the other types of approaches that could be looked at, then you could actually reduce the cost. And then what the parliamentary budget officer also said is what they didn't do is look at the long-term cost savings that undoubtedly there would be. We saw in the Mincome project in Manitoba that there were cost savings in terms of the criminal system, the prison system, the healthcare system, because people were eating better, they had a standard of living that was better, they were less likely to get sick, and they were less likely to use emergency rooms. And so we know that down the line, this type of approach not just makes sense in terms of being better for people, taking care of people better, but makes fiscal sense. It's financially more viable and actually leaves people in a better place than our current systems and costs less.
But that same program that was in Dauphin, Manitoba in the 70s, it was scrapped in 79, largely due to economic turmoil. That meant more families needed it. How does something like that not happen again on a larger scale, where it's discontinued all of a sudden?
Well, that's one of the reasons that many of the advocates that we've consulted with have suggested that we roll out some initiatives in a few places in this country, not just one. And that much like Medicare, the way Medicare started, where first Saskatchewan started doing it, and once people started to see the benefits, even though, yes, there were costs to it, the longer term benefits people signed on to, and nobody wanted to cut it once they started to see the benefits. In this case, when you start with a small group and only do it incrementally, which is what we've already done really in Canada with the Canada Child Benefit, with a guaranteed income supplement for seniors, and now we're going to have a disability benefit. And the obvious question is, why are we still leaving some people out? And you know, the BC group that looked at this, as well as in Quebec, they said, let's let's essentially do it incrementally. Let's target certain groups. And that has a certain appeal until you realize, okay, who does that leave out? Well, guess what? It leaves out a lot of Indigenous people. It leaves out a lot of people who are struggling right now on social assistance.
Changing topics, you also sit on the Senate committee looking closely at the bail reform bill. Indigenous lawyer Krista Big Canoe testified before that committee last month. She said what the bill does is it will result in more Indigenous women behind bars. How has the Senate responded to that criticism?
Well, you know, as you may know, I was, aside from the government leader and the critic on the bill, the conservative critic, I was the only other person who spoke in the Senate at second reading on the bill and encouraged us not to pass it. I'm not going to vote in favor of the bill. In fact, I'm just headed right after this back into legal committee. And last night it passed clause by clause, so that means it's going to go back to the Senate for third reading. But we included amendments to try and reverse some of the most egregious parts of the bill. My personal view is it still shouldn't pass. It shouldn't see the light of day. That yes, Krista Big Canoe is and many other witnesses are absolutely right. That we know that this will likely result in not the people who committed the horrible offenses that actually generated this bill, that gave rise to the Premier's writing to then Minister of Justice Lametti and asking for it. But instead, it will result in many, many more people being ensnared in the system and make it harder for them to get out on bail, harder for them to, and therefore also more likely to end up in prison, because once you're in there, and that it's often a fast track in. And yet we know that the majority of those folks, and somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, 49 to 50%, may not even be found guilty. But when we're talking about Indigenous people and Indigenous women in particular, we know they're also more likely to plead guilty, because if they get held on bail and there's a potential for them to lose their kids, to lose their housing, and potentially lose jobs, lose basically everything, then oftentimes they're encouraged to plead guilty to get it over with.
Miigwech for that. Thank you, Senator Pate.
Miigwech, thank you to you too, and thanks for all your work at APTN, all of you.
Great. Wow,
Okay.
that was definitely a fantastic video. Thanks.
Yeah.
Oops.
Brian,
Wow.
can I bring up one point that the Senate meeting that they missed? In all of this GLBI talk and all of the reports that are going to come out in what is now 8 days away, is when it's due to be filed with the clerk. I'm not sure when they're going to release it, but it has to be with the clerk in 8 days. Is that nobody mentioned scenario 2 and 3, even though Alan and Greg and everybody who has fought so hard for GLBI. It looks to me like they may silence the scenario 2 and 3 again, like they did the last time. where they left it out conveniently because it was not specifically requested. And we need to remember and keep in mind when we listen to this that they may only be talking about the 50% scenario where
can you go back over and just give us the Coles Notes version of all three scenarios?
Mhm.
the Coles Notes version is GLBI is on the premise that you won't get to keep all the money all the time. It's not universal. It's not, you're going to get $500 a month no matter how much you make. It's based on your income. So the Coles Notes version is scenario one is, okay, you're going to make, your money, but we're going to take away 50% of what you make and put it against the GLBI until the GLBI phases out. So, for example, you make $1,000, they're going to take $500 from that GLBI away. Mm-hmm. Scenario two is 25%, so it's half as strong, right? It leaves half as much more money in your pocket each month, which can have more people involved in the program. It helps not only the lower income, but also more people who make more money. So it helps more of the community. And then scenario three is the largest, where it's 15%. So one for every $8 that you make comes off, right?
Oh, okay.
So that one really makes a difference, right? That one is like, $6.66. One for every $6.66 that you make. So it really it embraces over 20 million Canadians, and that's like Senator Pate said in that video. It does not include the Indigenous populations that we need to include now. It doesn't include the 17-year-olds. They have to give more information on, how people's income has changed and how better off it would be. But are they going to look at scenario 1, 2, and 3? Are they going to look at, is the people getting it in the middle class going to benefit them if we do a bigger basic income?
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one thing that they need to look at.
I think one of the things we need to look at is, compared to 10 years ago, is that the gig economy has become the norm and the standard. Hey, you can work for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years at one place. It has become the unicorn in employment. So when we think of a basic income, whatever it is, whether it's universal, whether it's GLBI, is a question of when, not if, even more so than it was 5 years ago. That's just my opinion, but I've seen a shift.
When, not if.
I have seen a shift.
So I have a question. Is how much is it, for the GLBI, what's the number amount going to be?
Okay, so right now, if you use the same formula as Ontario did, but you update it to today's low-income measure,
the LIFO,
it would be $21,905 for a single adult. It would be just under $29,000 for a family. And then if you're disabled, you add an extra $6,000 a year that cannot be reduced by your work income.
Okay, so we're looking,
if you're
a single guy.
So that still requires administration.
Then it would be $12,000.
So that still requires a bit of administration to go and manage all of that.
Not really. I mean, you can do it in your income taxes. It's set for the whole year. So the administration cost is literally 3 minutes of a CRA agent going, yep, there's your income. Yep, verified. There's your GLBI.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's good for a whole year, situations over the year can change, right?
Yeah.
And this is right. So this is where it can create a level of inconsistency as well, because if it's calculated based on your whole year's taxes, then if, for example, if you have an up year, then all of a sudden you end up in an accident.
There is a downside to increased income, because what happens is, but there's also a fail-safe. It also acts as a fail-safe. So, for example, you work for a living and then you get laid off, and you go and you apply for EI, and you get your EI, but you also collect your GLBI. Then all of a sudden, the next year, you have way more taxable income, and your GLBI is reduced, offsetting and making sure that you don't abuse the situation, but also at the same time ensuring that your income stays at a minimum standard.
Now, are we talking on monthly increments, or are we talking on any?
I believe that they should be given 4 options. They should be given monthly, yearly, bank it, or I don't want it. I refuse it. And if they refuse it, then automatically that money goes towards the national debt.
See, and this is where I go with the take it or leave it option as well. It's like you can choose to take it, choose not to take it. It's up to you, right?
But I believe in a banking option, though, NJ, because that way young Canadians that are, 17, 18, they don't want to take that money out because they've already got a job because mom and dad found them one, or they got one through co-op at school or through their education, and they got a job already. They can bank that GLBI with interest so that later on they can actually withdraw it, guaranteed by the government when they need it. Whether they lose their job or whether they need a house investment or they have a healthcare situation or whatever, they can withdraw it later. And because GLBI is tax-free, those big withdrawals later are better than a tax-free savings account you've contributed for 4 years straight.
Well, here, let me bounce an idea off you. Now, I'm using this based on my dad when he took the year off when we went sailing. He had a salary of, let's say it was $80,000. He took 3/4 of his salary for the year before the sailing trip. He banked 1/4 of it. So instead of making 80 that year, let's say he made 45 that year. But because my mom so we have 40 a year, call it 50,000 a year plus whatever savings they put aside.
Right.
It would be interesting to see if someone said, well, I don't need, say, $2,500 a month. I would like to bank $500 a month of it so that I can get a tiny home or buy a house.
Yeah.
And be in a bag of percentage.
Partial deferral.
See, for example, like I've done the math here, and at $500 a month over 18 years, that's $96,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
That gets you tiny home. Just saying.
Well,
meanwhile, a GLBI at 21,905 times 49 years. What is that?
Well, no, this is like being able to bank, right? If you were just banking $500 a month, you would be banking, that money away for the future. So if you say you're going to keep the GLBI, you're going to get it for your kid, right? Because the kids, we're obviously going to be rolling in all the child benefits into this too, right? So. Mm-hmm. And probably student loans and all the rest of this stuff, because they're going to be downsizing all the administration. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at this when they decide.
No. GLBI does not touch EI. It doesn't touch CPP. It doesn't touch. Any of the major programs like CPP, EI, OAS, GIS, all that. It's not meant to replace those or stop them.
So it's a separate.
Canada Child Benefit is completely separate.
Okay.
The GLBI starts at 17 to 64. And then because CPP is so huge, like you see it in the news, Alberta wants to take half of it at like nearly $500 billion. CPP is so large, you don't want to tear it down. You don't want. Now, do we want to supplement on top of it? Sure, because the math back in the 60s was one job for a person. Now you have 5, 6, 10, 20 different employers contributing over the year when you're in a gig economy. And it's all messed up. It really is. You don't have control of your CPP. It's not like you can log in online and go, okay, I haven't contributed enough to my CPP this year. Here, I want to add more. You don't get to do that.
Well, you can actually manually contribute. Right, you can manually contribute if you want to, if you're self-employed.
But you have to manually contribute as your own employer, which means you need to pay yourself a wage and prove it and get pay stubs and this and that. And then, why? Why can't you just log in and go, I want to contribute more to my CPP?
Yeah, I got a question.
This is a problem with it all.
Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
we mentioned that this GLBI basic income would also have a disability increment to it or component to it. So my question is, why are they just not taking the disability benefit that it's taking apparently 18 months? If this thing passes before that passes, I'm wondering if that was the plan all along. Like, I don't know.
I'm going off of the formulas from 2018, remember?
Okay.
So when GLBI did the reports and all that, this is based on the program that was in 2018 in Ontario, but on a federal scale. So when I say there's a disability portion to this, there may not be later on. They may say, well, the Canada Disability Benefit is now just going to be an add-on to GLBI, right?
Right. It might be like a top-up. Might be like a top-up to the GLBI.
Okay, so more administration.
For all we know, right now, this discussion we're having, and the ones that the Senate are having and everybody else is having, what may happen is GLBI may actually come into force at the same time as CDB. They may end up, coming back with these PBO reports. Maybe they do scenario 2 and 3 and go, whoa, that's way better. Now they're going to get $10,000 a year more. Blah blah blah. Okay, let's do it. And then they decide, oh, well, the Canada Disability Benefit's already lost. Let's just attach this as a supplementary benefit on top of the GLBI. Or maybe the GLBI is the supplementary on top of the CDB. We just don't know yet.
Yeah.
But we're glad that they're investigating the cost.
Get Dan's take on how the GLBI would how it impact people's lives in different ways, and just his quick take on that, Dan.
That'll be real quick because it's going to be noisy here. So I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but the only numbers I heard were 1969 and 1979, right? So when the hell is this even coming? Like you just said, the CDB is it's been 18, 19 months now. The last time we had a GLBI was, what did you say, 1979, except for the thing in Ontario? I think it's got to come, what it's got to come down to now is like, all these shows that you guys do in the pods, it's great because it gets everybody together from a diverse perspective of the society to get it done. But when push comes to shove, we just gotta we gotta figure out how to get to that asshole right there in my background, and just feed it to them, because if we keep going in circles and everybody's got different ideas, it's never gonna get done. And the other part that bothers me, because as some of you know, my expertise, so to speak, are from the municipal and provincial level. I just lost my fucking train of thought there. My bad. Swear jar time. Why is this? Forgive me if I'm incorrect, and somebody can correct me. But isn't the Senate the non-elected body in the Parliament? So what the hell are we doing? Like, how are those people going to solve our problems? So if somebody can explain that.
Can I explain?
If somebody can explain that to everybody, these messages I'm getting about, it's never going to fucking happen. Stop the negativity. Listen to MJ here, what he's about to express to you.
Okay. The Senate.
Thanks, Dan. We'll come back to you in a little bit.
The Senate and the House are equal branches in our system, right? They can both equally create legislation that has to go to the other house. However, money bills have to originate in the House of Commons. So while the Senate can create this program, it would have to be funded through the House of Commons. Now, it also has to be passed through the House of Commons when it originates from the Senate, and vice versa back from the House. So what has to happen is both parties have to agree, then it has to get funded and budget approval and so on and so forth. Now, that's where in our system, then it goes to the Royal Assent, which to the Governor General, gets approved, becomes law, then it gets enacted, which however that is designed to be enacted from there. So to me, they just keep making they just make this too complex, right? They're making this entire process too complex.
Can I speak? You guys?
Go ahead.
Hi, like you guys are just get right at it. I've said this before at meetings. I have personally talked to one of the senators, Mary Jane McClellan, who I've done the big walk for the Search the Landfill down Portage Avenue, and I spent a majority of time chatting with her about Bill C-22 and its enactment. She has said to me that she knew that she could do something when Cointreau was in office, that she could try and pressure. However, this new minister that has been put in place seems to be doing the cat and mouse kind of game with not being for the people. As we all know, that she voted in favor of MAiD for people with.
Yeah, I saw that.
That hits close to home. A person who's now going to be celebrating 18 months of sobriety. It's troublesome to me because Indigenous people are vulnerable to addictions, vulnerable to mental illness because of residential school, 60 scoop and day school. That, to me, it's an elimination. And I have a really hard time politically trusting any minister who is voting to kill her people. So I've been quite vocal about that.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
That I had with Leah, I would say Proud Gazan, was excellent. Prior to this meeting I had probably in September, and Leah had said to me that the UBC is a private member's bill. It has very small teeth. Overall, in her experience, that there are a few people, and I guess Kim Pate is one of them, that is interested in UBC, but she said overall, she told me for us to put our energy in getting DERB. Now that we have this new minister, I honestly throw my hands up in the air now with this new MAiD voting. I honestly don't know what to do. I'm really frustrated. I've spoken with my MP, which is Dan Van Dell. Dan Van Dell has been vocal and he has been advocating for disabled people. It's basically a bigger entity than what we're capable of, unless I was told by Mary Jane, we need to unite. The division in the disabled community needs to cease, and we need to unite as one. So we need to get over our indifferences and our egos and come together. That's the only way we can actually make a proper change. So I don't know if that's even possible with the stuff that's gone on in the past. I'm a forgiving person and I can let go of shit, but not everybody is like me. So moving forward, I don't want to myself personally put a lot of time and energy into something that I've been told by an MP that doesn't have much bite. And speaking with that senator, I mean, I know that Mary Jane has put up the good fight for us with Bill C-22, and I've been pressuring her with DERB. So I have done everything that I can personally do myself. I think these Zooms are productive, and I appreciate you guys reviewing stuff, but we just have to look at facts and actions. If these people who are in power wanted to give us DERB, they would. They're not.
Yeah.
Now, UBC, if they wanted to give it to us, they would. They're not. So I'm going to sound really mean and harsh.
They're giving us MAiD.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. So this is part of the problem, is this is a complete discrimination on disabled people and people with addictions and mental illness. So what Gail Nestle is doing is she's actually talking to some lawyers. So I don't know, honestly, if the best thing for us to do is try and unify with people with disabilities and just do a federal class action suit via the decisions with MAiD and other things that they've breached with policy, because they have breached with Bill C-22. Cointreau breached at least 3 or 4 things during the duration of the bill. I am not sure, but all I know is we need to get all on the same page or nothing is going to work. So that's what I'm putting out into the universe. And if you guys are in agreement with that, then we have to move past the past and move forward. So,
yeah. So thank you, Jennifer. On that, that's a roundtable that I'm going to be implementing in. If you want to be part of that roundtable, anyone else on this roundtable right now wants to be on that roundtable, like, we're going to continue this roundtable of affordability, right? But there's going to be another roundtable called government accountability, right? So, I mean, it's almost the same, but not quite. It's more about action plans. It's about how to hold government to account. So, Jennifer, if you would like to be on that roundtable, I'm not sure what day we'll hold that on. Maybe, Neil, we could probably discuss that. This roundtable is on Mondays. We could theoretically do that other one on Tuesdays, if we're all in agreement. Going forward, whatever day works good, and we can put it in. As long as it's not Wednesday, and then Neil says Wednesdays are out, so it would have to be Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Wacky Wednesday.
There's some chat going on, or discussion going on in the chat, and actually Joseph is involved in the chat. One of the questions was there's been studies, and none of the studies have involved people with addictions, and it's I wonder why, and that's from Rose Pony. And Joseph as well has been involved in the conversation, and he's putting up a good argument as well. But one of the things I wanted to mention as well is it wasn't that long ago I was hearing that they're saying that there's a real flaw with social assistance, that it's all just one lump sum. There's one payment per month, and that's it, and you have to make do. And it kind of you're talking about addictions here in chat. It kind of leaves people open to that. The people that are addicted, can kind of just blow the money, so to speak. Whereas it's been proven if you instead have like a bi-weekly thing where it's like 2 payments in a month, you get less abuse that way.
There was a discussion that was done in BC on that one, Neil. I think one of the former
that's how CERB went, right? Every 2 weeks.
I know that there was a little bit of research done on that when our former minister, Mr. Simpson, had looked into that. But the problem is, I think the government decided not to go with that. It's a great idea. But what they would need to do is to increase the amount up to a livable income amount, so that they could divide it into, like, say, 2 weeks, so that if a person has enough for their accommodation, and they have enough for their food, their bills, and then maybe other their disability related services that they need, if it's diabetes or whatever medications they need that aren't covered under medical care. Whatever it is, like now they've got 2 other weeks where, or freedom to travel. I mean, God forbid, right? I mean, if you want to leave your province, day pass, please, Brent. But there's more options. But I think that the government looked at it as people maybe would spend it on drugs, or whatever. No, I mean, like Kim Pate said in that video, there's that myth saying, "Oh my God, if we give people more money, they're gonna blow it. They're gonna blow it." No, they're gonna house themselves. That was that one study that was done for $7,500 recently that was given to a select amount of people, right? But yeah, there's different sides of it. But
and that study actually showed that people that received that money, their depression levels went down. Which means, the long-term effects here is if your depression levels go down, that means less medication you have to take, which means less involvement in healthcare, which means more doctor availability, because you're not having to go in all the time to get your pills renewed, because our healthcare system requires doctors to go and renew your medication instead of seeing a doctor's assistant or a nurse clinician.
And maybe less spent on crime budgets too, because you're not strung out and like stealing stuff from London Drugs, as we said in the last podcast.
Exactly. It's like, I wanted to jump back to something for a second. Jennifer had mentioned MAiD, and I had a really neat idea about rebranding it, because I don't like it either, and I think we should be rebranding it to Government Assisted Suicide, which stands for GAS. And I'm deliberately going with this and saying they're gassing those.
I don't think that would go over well with certain communities.
I got gas.
War.
Oh, I got gas.
I just
Give
don't
me
think
a burrito.
I have to leave the room. I have gas. Yeah, yeah.
Give me some refried beans. I got gas.
Well, no, I mean, it's just, it's like when you're going and having people that are depressed,
Right.
or not able to go and afford a living because of welfare disability.
Right.
And to me, I believe, in my opinion, is that's what you're doing. You're basically executing your own people. That's what your government's doing.
I believe that they have the right to have a choice. If they have severe mental illness, but they have the comprehension to make the choice for themselves, and it's not based on their poverty, but it's based on their access or their situation as a whole, and that they have informedly decided that they want to end their life. They should have the right to do it. But the way that this thing has gone on, where we have just opened the floodgates and are willing to give them the choice to do it while we have this poverty situation going on, they are exactly right to examine this situation and find out if this is the right legislation to do. Because there are other countries that have medical assistance in death, okay? But they already have a better social safety net than we do when it comes to making sure that there's access to a livable, or at least somewhat livable income or circumstances to live, versus what we do, where, we have some people that live on $200 a month or less. And so, yeah, you're going to be mentally depressed and want to end your life too if you're living on $200 a month or less.
Well, exactly. And this is where, to me, torturing people to choose death by going and creating this type of system of where there's not enough money, where you go and decide, it's like, you're done because you just can't get ahead. I mean, that, to me, that's where the abuse of government really is.
Well, the way I look at it too is that the government's imposing more poverty, right? So they're creating more mental health issues. I mean, if that's what's happening, obviously, I mean, in society, one of my neighbors that is, I was just talking to this morning said that's how he and this one lady see it, is that deliberately keeping seniors rates below poverty. Keeping people with disabilities. I was like, I said, come on to my podcast. I said, let's talk. And they said people on low income, like deliberately suppressing the income so low that they can't even handle their basic needs in life. Like, I mean, shelter. I mean, that's government calls it shelter. But your basic needs, right? So if they're deliberately doing it, they're causing mental health. And then they say, oh, well, by the way, now you can go and apply for MAiD as of March of 2024 because you're now in a state of that. Hey, you're now,
and that to me, that's a crime against humanity.
And it's wrong. Like, I mean, this is coming from an MP. He used to work in Ottawa, and I was like, oh my God. He goes, like, he said, shame on the federal government for even going down that rabbit hole. I said, well, apparently they are. He goes, did they pass it? I go, yeah, they voted in favor. He goes, what? I go, yeah, they voted in favor. He goes, oh my God. He goes, who did it? I go, I'm not here to name names. I said, but I'm actually a little bit disappointed, to say the least, of a couple ministers who were on the list. He goes, oh,
I had this, Brent, I had this right-wing guy on TikTok come at me because I had reposted something about one of the people on our Twitter group. I think I can't remember her Twitter handle. Something is first we make thieves or something like that. I can't remember her. Anyway, so I'd reposted something and I got this really rude DM, and this guy, I shut him down really fast. He was like, oh, if we give you money, you're just going to burn it. And I said, you know what, buddy? You know what I did with my income tax? He said, what? I said, I went and spent $500 of my $1,300 on groceries before I even bought myself a coffee.
Right.
So that, I said, so if you want to come at me because I'm low income, you're just following that narrative that's toxic from the super wealthy that don't think I said there's a class warfare, and it's not with the middle class and lower class. It's created by the upper class to divide.
And
Right.
I
the
said-
middle class fighting against us.
Well, you
So,
said
so-
you
so
said something.
We want to talk about. We
So-
want to talk about the argument about oh well, if you give people a basic income, they'll just go and spend it on alcohol and booze. Well,
No,
I just spent $800 of my income tax, which I could have gone and bought a lens. Trust me, I wanted to. I could have walked down to my local camera shop and dropped $800 on a lens.
Well, yeah, I think the majority
No
of people
guilt, but
really use
I
the
wouldn't drop
GLBI.
500 on the grocery store
Yeah, I mean, majority
on a
of people,
Saturday
like
at
that.
Walmart.
they're going
at
to use
Walmart.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
that one,
Can I speak
witness
for a minute,
in
you guys?
the.
Go ahead, Jennifer. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm banging my drum because you guys, I'm like more pissed off at the 22 people that were getting paid to not vote.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
That's my
Thank you,
big problem
Jennifer.
with it.
Thank you on that. Thank you very much.
What's that one? I missed that part. Explain that.
There were 22 MPs that didn't come in to work that day.
Deliberately.
Deliberately. Oh, okay.
I have a problem with that.
Me too.
So
Yeah.
there's no say or whatever. I mean, a lot of the stuff that like you guys are talking about, they have all the information. They have had all the information that they need.
Yep.
Now, what they're doing now, from when I did speak with Mary Jane, is they're having consultations, and they want real lived experience people to be speaking in front of Senate who are from groups and organizations. Now, part of the problem with that is they're cherry picking.
Yep.
They're cherry picking who they want, what they want, and what they're doing. And this is so we can have a million meetings, but we don't know if they're going to cherry pick any one of us because we don't fit the criteria.
You know, I love that you use the word cherry pick, Jennifer, because I use the word cherry pick in all my emails. Like you realize that I've done like 4 different human rights complaints about the clawbacks, the pink unicorn that's behind Brent's head there. And they always tell me, well, it's just unfair, Neil. It's not discrimination, and I'll use the word cherry pick, and they even say, well, cherry picking isn't discrimination either. But then you look at the word, the antonym word of cherry pick is indiscriminate. So if the antonym word of cherry pick is indiscriminate, it means the opposite of that is discrimination. And they're saying, well, it's not discrimination, Neil. And it's like, oh, look at a frickin' dictionary and look at the antonym. It says indiscriminate for the antonym. So obviously, if it's indiscriminate for the antonym, it must be discriminatory, you know?
Yeah, and here's the other
And it's just a bunch of BS.
And they cherry pick it. It's like then they say, well, you can ask these questions, and these are the answers we want to hear in response. Like they'll literally condense it down so that they cherry pick on who we want to speak, and this is what you're going to say, and this is what we're going to want to hear in response. And that's just silencing the disabled people out or witnesses. That's just wrong. Go ahead, Jennifer, on feedback on that. What's your view on that?
I totally believe that they're cherry picking. I believe that from the list of the people that were speaking in front of Senate and the people that in Manitoba, that they were all picked by, at that point, the PC government, that they had certain people and certain disability groups that were picked specifically to speak federally, provincially about certain things with the disability community. I don't believe that people like in our group and PWD Army were even thought of in emails and the responses from both ministers that I sent emails to. I got the same response that you would get to every person that is a disabled person across Canada. There was no changes. It was just basically citing websites of where you can go. Here are our things, and there was no specific questions answered or anything. And that's my personal experience.
Yeah, and what I heard, when I used to do the Twitter space, they would have different individuals coming on talking exactly what we're talking about now. That there'll be select people that will be asked to be a witness from the disability community. Obviously, that didn't happen, right? I mean, they asked people to submit in their, their questions, and all that stuff, but it came down to organizations, and they picked the organizations that they wanted, the government wanted to hear from.
Organizations that are funded by the government.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So of course they're going to be a little bit biased.
Yeah, but what was ironic is I'm not going to point out certain ones, but there was one in particular that we all, as a disability community, as activists across the country, are we advocating for better change of a quality of life for ourselves as our and also as as people across the country, as allies, would join us in too with our discussions. But we would actually echo that we need DERB. Not once did I see one respond of DERB under one of the organizations. They would not push for DERB. Why is that? Well, because they're told not to.
And paid for, basically.
Well, yeah, and
in a metaphorical sense.
Yeah, but I kind of, it reminds me of a time that I was just talking to Sonia just recently here about a time where there was one disability advocacy organization. They're pretty big. And I'll mention it because I don't mind. I mean, because they're across Canada too. But they have a chapter in BC, but they're also across Canada. It's Inclusion Canada. We've all heard about them. They also have a chapter in BC. One of their head honchos that was in charge of disability, of Inclusion BC, met with a minister years ago, and I was actually fighting about a bus pass at the time. They took it away, right? And Neil knows all about that because I rant and rave about it. Now, there was the executive director who was in charge of Inclusion BC was right in front of an MLA, right in front of them, and the guy basically shut her down. He says, if you talk that way to me, I'm going to walk away from you right now. And I thought, are you kidding me? You're not going to listen to an advocate, a person who represents a organization? And it was very rude. Like, I was very condescending on how he was talking to her. I thought very disrespectful. And at the same time, she messaged me. She then phoned me and said, you know what, Brent, I'm done. I can't deal with this. And she moved away, Jennifer. She moved away to Saskatchewan. She was just done with it because it was manipulation. The government wouldn't listen to her. They only wanted her to say what they wanted what they wanted to hear. And it's like saying, we're paying you to advocate, but you can't advocate any higher than a certain percentage otherwise. And she went a little bit further because she cared. She cared so much for the disabled community that she fought, but the government didn't want to hear that, so they shut her down. I thought, wow.
I think it's important because quite a while ago you said you were talking about, maybe the government's being deliberate here, or you said something to that effect. And I think it's important to realize that basically everything that the government does, let's be honest, is very purposeful, very thought out, very, very deliberate. We can't say that maybe they chose. There's no I wonder if it's.
Yeah.
They definitely are choosing to do this very deliberately, very purposely. Like there's never a decision where you can go, oh, maybe they're trying to do this. They're definitely trying to do,
Right.
I think we have to make this distinction that, the government imposed poverty. There's nothing iffy about it. It's very deliberate, very purposeful. It's done on purpose. I mean, and that's, again, if we go back to the times that we've railed against Harcourt here in BC and Gordon Campbell, the reason why I've railed so hard against those two people in particular is because what they did was so deliberate, so purposeful, and it was just basically two egotistical, bigoted men that took it upon themselves to say, almost like, screw my party, screw my government. I'm going to make a one-man decision to F over the entire disability community, and I don't care. that's going above and beyond, and that's what I mean about very purposeful and very deliberate decisions, and that actually can be pinned on just that one, each. For Harcourt, that was his decision, like almost exclusively his decision, and same thing with Gordon Campbell. That was his decision, like 100%. It had nothing to do with the party. That was his bigoted decision, his egotistical decision, both of them. And that's why I rail so hard against both of them for that reason.
Yeah, when we had the finance minister in the previous administration, even he basically got scolded. He got scolded for playing the little shell game, right? When it came to here you can have a rate increase, but you're only gonna get $25 of it. So you can have a bus pass, you can have $25, but here's $77 because the media says, oh wow, they got a $77 increase. Well, wait a minute. There was that wait a minute, right? And it was like they screwed up, and what it comes down to, again, everybody, it's all about policies, right? It's about government, induced policies that affect people's lives. We need to get out of that rhetoric, and like when I say we, meaning like we need to not put up with the government rhetoric. We need to take a stand. If that basically means that we need to have more rallies across our provinces and tell the governments enough, and that will be on our roundtable about government accountability. I just wanted to throw that part in because it kind of gives that theme of saying, hey, and we need to, we need to gather up as as allies, as Jeff Leggett would call it, allies and warriors, right, across the country, across our nation. And I think Jeff might even be on that. I have to ask him. He may want to be on that government accountability one.
We've got two hands up. Sorry, Alan.
Okay,
we've got two hands up. I just wanted to go to Dan maybe first, and then go over to MJ.
I'll just be very quick. Again, I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? Like sometimes the division throughout the community.
I'm the devil.
Yeah. Well, some of us are and some of us aren't, right? But the division through the community, it's like some folks have some tunnel vision and singular narratives. And that's a big fucking problem. If you look right behind me, that sign that says Ainsley, that's the office I used to work at. And when I didn't conform to the narrative of a certain group here in Toronto that wanted to do the things their way, I was, however you kids are calling it nowadays, cancel culture. Now, how the fuck does that work? Pardon my French, this is a daily program. How does that work? How are we going to work together if we have people behind the scenes that are just canceling out people like myself and other people that have the actual work experience with all this shit, and then we have to start over again? Like, for example, the basic income. I'm sorry, guys. I agree with everything you guys are saying, MJ and Joseph, there, how you explain it and stuff. But I hope we know that we're fighting for a basic income for our children and for their futures. Because as we said earlier, 1979, this started, right? It's now 2023. I don't know about you guys, but I turned 46 last week. I'm not going to be around to see any of this shit. But I hope through our efforts, and those that are genuine, not these freaks that get on and say that they're going to do this, say that they're going to do that, and then they screw up. But those that are genuine to work together with it. Here in Toronto, you'll see the names on the media all the time. McNally, Lorraine Lamb, Stupid Progress Toronto, all the unions fighting for everything. And where has it gotten us? It's gotten us nowhere. All these people have been there for 20, 30 years, and the jack-offs that got me kicked out of that office are still there doing the same thing that they've been doing for decades. So as you guys said, we got to work together, get in a group, save the lawsuits and everything for another time, because we got to get something in people's pockets right now, not 40 years from now, right fucking now. And it's people like Doug Ford, people like Justin Trudeau, and it doesn't matter who's in it. It doesn't matter if it was Carla Qualtrough or not. They've all been kicking this bucket down the fucking road for the past how many years? These discussions got to continue, and we got to learn that it's not always only our singular ideas and narratives that we're. I've met Joseph before, okay? We went to a basic income rally in Toronto, okay? We sat and had a smoke and had a discussion about things. And even if people disagree on certain things, you should be working together and not getting people canceled for the sake of your own narrative, because that way it's never gonna effing work.
People are suffering across our nation, and I totally echo, Dan, what you're saying about, people need help now. So if it's DERB or whatever, we all call it DERB, but it's like, Christopher Freeland, if you're watching this now, please. Like, and I literally stress the word please. And I'm being very polite, very political. I could say other words, but I'm not going to, because I respect myself for the word please. But people are dying. Like, people are dying on the streets right now, Krista. Like, you promised the Canada Disability Benefit 3 years ago. 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. How much more do you want to hear from your own MPs? Your own MPs, MLAs across every provincial government who has now said, help your citizens, help them out, get it out there. I don't know. Like, I've talked to some counterparts, and I'm not going to go the rabbit hole back and forth. You know, I'm saying, well, provincial will say, well, Brent, the federal is working on it. And I was told this directly from an MLA in my provincial legislature. They're working on it, Brent. I go, they're not working on it. Yes, they are. No, they're not. Because, see, the federal government was counting, provincial governments were counting on the federal to do it. They screwed up. The federal screwed up. Why? Because they didn't want to pass it. Right?
See,
we're going to study it. We're going to study and study and study it until we kick it, like Dan said. We're going to keep kicking it down the road so we never have to deal with it. But eventually we're going to make something out of it. So, Krista, please get a DERB out, or whatever you want to call it, emergency fund. CRA can easily get it out the door. They have our personal information. They know who their citizens are. It's easy peasy, done, bang, done, boom.
Mm-hmm.
See, and this is where all of this gameplay of, it goes back and forth. Oh, the feds are doing it. The provinces are doing it. Oh, this, that, and everything else. And see, one of the things that I've looked at with the program that I'm putting together and the idea of is it's going to be dealt with at the federal level.
Yep.
And the people that are disabled, they can choose to walk away from the provincial system, and the provinces are going to be sitting here with workers that have no job to do, right? That's going to be the way it is. People will walk away from WCB, they'll walk away from, because the federal benefits, in my idea, would all be put together into all of this, right? I mean, and this is where the funding part comes in, because we do have all these infrastructures in place with the investment branch for CPP, investment for unemployment. We have all this money. If we properly organized it and properly put it together, we would solve problems.
Right.
The real problem is with all this excessive government administration, right? The amount of people that, yes, are going to lose their jobs, unfortunately. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of people that lose jobs with any form of UBI or GLBI. My idea is you take it or leave it. There's not going to be any discounts if you earn money, because to me, that's just more administration and it's more nonsense. And my idea is simplification all the way around. This is only part of my idea. It's like the other half has to be the income tax system that gets simplified, so the people that are actually making money aren't using all of their tax deductions that they can go and use to pay zero taxes, right? There's more issues than just, when you look at funding all of these programs, you have to look at how we're administrating an entire tax system and scheme that goes and makes it so the people that are rich pay next to no taxes because they got all of these deductions that they can go and jump in on.
Right. Because right now, MJ, the provincial will blame the federal because, hey, it's their jurisdiction. Federal will tell, say, well, you're suffering. Go and talk to your provincial government while we work on this. And the provincial says, hey, we got no money. We got no money.
Exactly.
Saying, well, we got none. Really? Well, at the same time, they ballooned up their provincial budget by $20 billion in taxes, but we got nothing to give our citizens, disabled citizens. But hey, there's more to do. We got more work to do. It's always that rhetoric of talking points, and it doesn't matter who's in government. And again, then it's kind of like blame game. Well, this government, that government. It's like work to frickin' together. Like, so if it's, like when I say work together, it's like provincial versus federal. Okay, well, it doesn't matter who's going to provide the money. If they're going to provide it, somebody's going to have to take ownership. So provincial needs to take care of it, right? And it's like that wavering back and forth, right?
See, and one of the things that the provinces don't seem to get is if the feds have to take ownership of this, they're going to also take ownership of reducing the amount of tax transfers that the provinces get because they're going to pay for this.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. And then it actually gives people more money in their pockets. They can go and have a livelihood. They can then, especially if it's federally run, because now they can actually go and live wherever they want in the country without having that day pass or a month pass saying, "Can I please go?" Well, Brent, don't ask permission, just go.
Well, exactly. And this is, this is where, to me, my idea is based on the concept of, cruel and unusual punishment or treatment or torture and abuse that these programs tend to inflict on the people that are disabled.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm one of the, I just want to end the abuse all wholesale.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's where I'm really at, is I'm done.
Because,
I'm so done.
Like the digital ankle bracelet,
but I mean, people shouldn't be
does about.
surveyed. Yeah, they shouldn't be surveyed, though. They shouldn't be monitored because, I mean, wow, we're just citizens. I mean, it's not our fault that we have a disability, that we're on a disability income, which used to be a pension, by the way, folks, just watching this and tuning in. If you have comments on that, definitely throw them out there. But people with disabilities, they can get a disability anytime. I mean, anyone. You can be in a car accident. I ran into one of my neighbors who used to work in a big corporation, making very good money, is now on provincial disability, is saying, well, my gosh, I didn't realize that the government actually treats their disabled citizens this way and induced poverty. I go, yeah, it's called legislated poverty. Why? I go, because it's a policy choice. It's across the country. It's not just in BC, it's every province. So unfortunately, sadly, there are a couple provinces in the Maritimes that don't even have the PWD designation, but people are still disabled, but now they have to prove, are you looking for work? Are you, tell me your employer's address, phone number. Really? Is that what we do for our citizens that have, they have a disability? It's not going to change their quality of life. It's like saying, we're going to reassess you and we're going to reassess you. Why? Oh, just to try and save some money for administration. Does it go away?
And I had to get reassessed when my first wife passed away too.
Yeah,
it's just so stupid. It's like what changed other than my wife died? Thanks.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like a pink unicorn.
Being docked $100 because you were out of the province for 10 days on ODSP. It's like with that whole every time you log into my benefits, it's like, okay, so I got a funeral in Nova Scotia to go, let's say. I'm going to be there for 10 days, right? Or 5 days. Oh, well, when you do your reports the next month, we're going to take X amount of dollars for those 10 days you weren't in the province. Like, really?
Yeah, I mean, meanwhile, you have a crisis that you're going through, and the last thing that you want to think about is, I need to tell the government that I need a day pass. Can I go? No, I'm sorry, you have a emergency or whatever it is.
You might as well just put a ankle bracelet on people.
It's terrible, right? And that's what needs to change. And that's why I strongly believe that we need a guaranteed livable basic income across this nation. Get rid of all the other administration stuff. Because we don't need it all. I love all the different viewpoints on how to get that.
Arbitrated. It's so out of date. And
it is
so antiquated. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and I'll bring this up in when we do the accountability thing, but I was disgusted this morning when I looked on Twitter and I saw how Sarah Jarmer had been thrown under the bus. I was like, not just because she's a disabled Ontarian, but because she spoke her mind, and we all know how Doug Ford looks at women, the way he talked to Andrew Horvath. It's like nails on the chalkboard. I mean, we know he's a bigot. He's a sexist POS. His brother was. The whole Ford family are just a horrible pair. The whole bunch of them.
They should never. Elected
officials. And boo on Mrs. Stiles for not backing up Sarah because she spoke her mind about a horrific situation in Hamas. Like, really? Is that what it's come down to?
I'll say very quickly because I see Jennifer's hands up, but just to touch on Sarah there, I actually know Sarah Jam, and I've been to plenty of rallies with her. She actually goes to the poverty rallies and the PWD rallies and so
bet she does.
I don't know her. I don't know her outside of the legislature, but what I've seen from her and what I do know is that she's a stand-up person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
she's a great person. And the reason why this happened is because A, Merrick Stiles is chicken shit of Doug Ford, and B, Doug Ford hates people that are disabled. It's that simple, right? There's no other reason, because this lady doesn't cause a problem with anybody. And I believe she's also out in the area. She took over the area where Andrea Horvath was in, and Andrea Horvath's now the mayor of Hamilton. So we all know how much Doug Ford loves Andrea Horvath. The other thing that we do very quickly is they got to stop talking about Bonnie Crombie, the Liberal. It's going to take Doug Ford out. Liberals don't have an official party in the Ontario legislature, so they should probably work on getting a party together before they try to cut Doug Ford's throat. But sorry, Jennifer.
Thanks, Dan. I always love Dan's take on that, Dan. I always love your take on that.
I was just, I felt my whole appetite was gone. I read that post about her being taken out of the caucus and not being able to speak, and I was like, really? Is this the Canada I grew up in?
Right.
Like, wow.
It's kind of like groups sometimes with you guys.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be rude or disrespectful, but sometimes you guys go on and don't allow women who are Indigenous and not Indigenous to speak. So, and sometimes people, no offense, Dan, sometimes people cut in front of us disrespectfully to say their 2 cents. So this is actually one of the reasons why I kind of stepped back from participating in a lot of these things, because I don't tolerate disrespect anymore. I now have learned to tell people, pardon my language, to people listening, to fuck off now. So instead of telling them that to do that, I walk away from them and I don't look back now. So I did participate in this because I wanted to get my points across as a disabled Indigenous woman. And I appreciate it. And I apologize for having to pull my drum out, but I wasn't having the opportunity to speak or be heard. So that is the only reason why I brought the drum out. And I know you guys get excited, but sometimes in our culture, what we do is we hand around a feather, or we time people to give people the appropriate time to say what they have to say. But when people are saying the same things over and over again, and they're not actually doing something called active listening to actually hear and validate the people who are speaking, we have issues. So I understand that you guys are very strong on Ontario, and this is part of the problem that I've experienced being in a PWD advocacy disability groups, that it's only always ODSP. Now, unfortunately, there is other provinces in Canada where there are people who are disabled and people who are living off of less than what ODSP pays. And Manitoba is one of them. And the only thing that I can say to you guys is we need to start having respect for one another. And Dan, I don't expect an apology from you. However, in future, if we're in a group and I'm in a round table, please don't do that. That just shows to me that not only do you not respect me as an Indigenous woman, you just don't respect other people. So a part of it is self-control. And I'm sorry if I'm going to sound harsh, but I'm not going to sugarcoat anything.
In fairness, Jennifer, I'm gonna step in, because in fairness, this is your first roundtable. Dan's been to quite a few, and actually Dan will tell you himself. I mean, and we've all witnessed it. It's very hard to moderate something like this when there's so many voices, and everybody's a strong voice, and it's hard for me to moderate. And there's lots of times where Dan comes on and he doesn't even speak because it's so hard to moderate and get everybody equal time. So I don't see Dan speaking ahead of you as being disrespectful. I just see it as from a producer point of view, from an editor producer point of view. I just see it as it's a tricky thing to moderate and give people equal time on these kind of on these kind of roundtables. It wasn't a sign of disrespect. I mean, like I said, Dan has been on a number of these things where he's barely said a word because it's so hard to moderate these things. And it wasn't a sign of me disrespecting Dan either when he's come on and he hasn't had a chance to speak either. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's I know it can be frustrating at times. I mean, I'm kind of guilty that way sometimes myself, where I've not intentionally interrupted some people when they're speaking. I think going forward, and I'm not knocking anybody down at all either, right? I don't knock myself down, but I've learned over time too that with doing roundtables or any shows too, is like, say, having roundtables is that maybe, I don't know, I mean, if we're all in agreement, maybe we could try to maybe give each other like a certain amount of time. Like we'll say, okay, you have like, say, 3 minutes, and I don't like to limit people down to a certain time, but maybe so we could all take turns. I mean, I don't know. Do you think maybe that might help?
But it is hard. It is hard, Brent. I mean, like, yeah. I'm always, as your editor producer, I'm always trying to give people equal airtime, and I know you are too. But when you have, I mean, we've had up to 9 people sometimes on these
I know
roundtables, and it's really hard to give everybody equal airtime. And like I've said, there's lots of times where Dan's come on, and he hasn't said a peep. And it's not that I'm trying to be disrespectful. It's just sometimes that's the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
And we're not trying to openly disrespect people, right?
I think when I did the first roundtable, where I was out on Lake Ontario there, I don't think I said anything much.
Yeah, you didn't really say too much. It was actually hard to hear you, to be honest, for a bit there.
Yeah, fair enough. It was right by the water.
It was pretty, though. It was pretty.
But I mean, getting back to, back to your comment, Jennifer, I mean, I echo, like, I totally understand what you mean when it comes to not being able to have that time to speak. And I get it, because, like, I mean, like I say, I've interrupted people myself, and I don't mean to. If I do, and I apologize, I totally get it. But I mean, we all learn. Like, we all learn. It's a learning curve of advocacy. I mean, for myself, I learned from you guys. That's what it's all about. Lived experience. I learn, and I gather up information, and I say, this is what the general amount of people, what they're talking about. I learn about a lot. I mean, Jennifer, you've taught me a lot about Indigenous stuff that, to be honest, I was really, I mean, you educate me. You educate me with a lot of stuff that I didn't really know a lot about, because obviously in the school system, they never taught us a lot of that.
You and I have both said, I mean, when I grew up, like, they never taught us anything like that.
They didn't.
Like, nothing. On purpose. We're talking about purposeful and deliberate things.
Yeah.
On purpose, we were never taught that.
And when I heard on the news, on the media, and I heard this through our provincial legislature, they talk a lot about Indigenous all the time, of the to find the missing children. They want to bring them home. They want to bring them home. And it put tears in my eyes, because it's like, it never had to be that way. Like, it never had to. The children should have been able to enjoy life, to not be going through subjecting the government, subjecting them through that. And so, hearing and learning, I think that I have a lot to learn regarding Indigenous like pronunciations of when I do the show, and I can never get the terminology down. I think I did that one Breaking with Brent segment. I really struggled on, like, I think I said I'm on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Save the Tooth, but some of the politicians, like, they'll say the stuff, you know what I mean, and like it just comes to them. But for me, I have to learn, like, when I'm doing that, if I'm broadcasting live on a location, it's not just for me, but it's respecting the Indigenous, the First Nations, the Indigenous, who I have the privilege of being on their land. So I have to learn that to listen and learn from people too. And that's what I want the government to learn from us, not just from us, but from the Indigenous, from anybody who are citizens in this country. I want the government to actually just finally listen and put all their political posturing aside. Oh, I'm gonna be the prime minister. I'm gonna be the premier. Okay, great, but you're voted in to represent your community. To represent. You need to listen to your citizens. People should not be dying on the streets because of starvation, because of poverty, not having enough income, not be able to buy clothes for themselves. Do they need to go to a food bank? Well, we all know what my opinion about food banks, right? If it works great for some people, perfect. If it doesn't, I think people should be just given enough resources overall for everything. And if we need to tax them, we need to tax that income, like Joseph said. If there's different ways of doing it, perfect, whatever. But
well, they tax the CERB, right? Because okay, so the CERB was supposed to do $2,000 a month, and they knocked $100 per 2-week periods off for taxes, right? So it was like 900.
Right.
It was 900 every 2 weeks, so it got taxed. So why?
Right. So if we need to get that, we need to take care of our citizens. I mean, we're supposed to be in a wealthy nation. We should be taking care of our citizens, not corporations. But Jennifer, if I could give you a big right now, I would. I want to thank you on what you said. So I apologize if I upset you or anything. I just wanted to throw that out there, and I didn't mean to at all. Okay, just want to.
She's got her hand up again, so we can.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. Talk again, she can.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh. Is she still there? She had her hand up, so.
Jennifer?
I'm not sure. We can go back to her. Dan, Dan, you have your hand up?
There she is.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Oh, maybe she's had trouble with audio.
Hi, I don't know, my audio is being really weird.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I can hear you, Jennifer.
Yeah, no, my phone's cutting in and out right now. The connection is really kerfuffly in this place. But yeah, no, I didn't mean to be rude or anything, but I'm learning to use my voice and speak up when I feel or am feeling disrespected. And I know that not to take things personally, and I don't mean to attack Ontario, because I know you guys have enough issues with Satan at the realm, and I will call I will refer to Doug Ford as Satan, because he is just almost as evil as our premier. But I mean, right now we're in transition in Manitoba. There is a positive change for us with the NDP being in power. Wob has, I know him personally. I went to school with him in the University of Winnipeg, and he is a Sundancer. He is true to his word, and there's going to be a lot of changes in our province. So I'm really grateful for that. He's got all new cabinet. We've got a new health minister, new justice minister, and it's going to be quite interesting to see how they do the changes in our province. So I'm really thankful as a person who's Indigenous and a person who's got disabilities, because I can see future changes that are positive here. Unfortunately, the federal level, the feds are doing so much. And it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
You gotta just work, like exactly what Dan said. We got to move apart from how do you let go of really bad things when people do evil things to you? Honestly, I don't know. You just can't hang on to it, because then you can either turn bitter and turn angry and turn hateful. And that's not a good way to be for yourself. That'll just eat you up. So I personally learned to heal, move forward, and let things go that I can't change, because sometimes you have to accept the fact the government is in power, not for us or for any little people or vulnerable people. They're in power for themselves. And they don't give a crap about us. They're really, honestly, they're a corporation. And the only thing that they really recognize is other corporations. So it's going to be difficult to make waves, but we have to try. And that's where I'm here.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm still willing to try, but there's a lot of people in the disability community that feel exactly like Dan, that feel like they've been fried, burnt, lied to, scapegoated, backstabbed, and a lot of really horrific things have been done to them to basically cause them a lot of pain and a lot of hardship. And I understand that. It's not easy to forgive, but forgiveness is a choice. And I can't force anybody else to forgive, but I myself try to move forward. So otherwise I wouldn't be in this space. But thank you guys for your input on the UBC and what you guys have given me. I've taken notes, and I guess we move forward with the next one. So thank you.
Thanks on that, Jennifer. That's one thing I've learned in life too. It's that there is, oops, I had an AirPod on my phone. Yeah, it was weird. Sonia had an AirPod on her phone there, and all of a sudden it showed up on my screen and said, "Is this your AirPod?" What's going on here? But I really echo that. I know I struggle with that sometimes myself, where, and like maybe it's not exactly that, but it's like, okay, so we got a provincial government, right? We got an NDP majority government. I've learned over time that I know a lot of them that are in the opposition right now, and it's the same thing. Like, and I know them like personally. I've met them over time, over years, and I like a lot of the ones in the NDP right now too. I was called out a few good times over years, right? Even on social media, saying, "Oh no, Brent's not going to hold the premier to account. Brent's a nice guy. He's not going to hold the premier to account because he knows him personally. He knows the premier personally. He's his friend, so he's not going to bash his friend." So I think I totally get what you're saying. Like, it's like saying, maybe not, it's not in so many words, but it's saying like, people need to get over certain hurdles. Now, it's maybe not exactly the same thing, but it's like it's like I have to hold whoever it is account. So it's like whoever's in government or whatever it is, it's like I need to learn for myself that I need to try to work with all the disability communities, like of different people, of whatever our understanding is. I mean, we're always going to have disagreements. Hey, Neil, like I could have a disagreement with you. Hey, no, Neil, we're going to be broadcasting this way. No, we're going to have this guest on. No, Neil, I don't want that guest on. Not saying that we have had that discussion, but I mean, like different viewpoints. And like I can tell you, for instance, I had one guest on, and I'm not going to say who, but I got bashed, you guys. I got bashed by someone who said, "How dare you, Brent? How dare you have that person on? Like, why would you do that?" And I said, because I believe in advocacy. I believe that just because that person was on my show, that person is advocating for themselves. They're advocating for their community.
Yeah.
So having viewpoints,
and it was only because this person, and I won't give any more away, but it was only because this person was affiliated with a particular party.
Yes,
but the reason why you brought this person on is, like you said, as an advocate for, not as a politician, but as an advocate.
Okay, so, and I'm going to have that person on again because I believe, and that's why I have anyone on my show. I mean, and there's been times where I'm like, okay, like, because it's like, I always like to hear their viewpoints. I mean, all the ones on our roundtable today, like, we're all advocates. We are a group, right? I mean, I hear different viewpoints, and I gather up the same thing. I gather up information. I say, like, it's awesome, different viewpoints. And Jennifer, like, you really hit a lot of awesome things. Like, it's like, it's like it kind of echoes what I'm already thinking. It's like I have to learn. I have to learn to kind of put things aside that, like I've learned from the Twitter space, as we all know, when I used to do the Twitter space. Yeah, and I used to hear from from Sonia, like, come on, the show's over. And then I'd hear it from Neil, like, and you guys, and I can say, because Neil's right here, come on, for God's sake, Brent, shut the goddamn thing down.
I would never say that.
No, no.
5 hours later.
I didn't
5 hours.
I didn't swear at
Sonia
you.
did.
I didn't
Sonia
swear at
did.
you, but
And
yeah.
I had it, and I had it on one of the shows, or Sonia comes in, shut it down. And I think I was like, oh, it was a good discussion, but you know what? I live and learn, right? Because I learned, I'm saying, okay, like a certain enough was enough, right? Of the time frame. And I guess part of it too is a growing curve for myself, you guys. It's like, and one's listening to the show, they're like, I mean, Brent, we enjoy the podcast. It's awesome. And I get positive feedback about it all the time. So I welcome the people that say that to come and subscribe to the show. Because what I'm saying is...
But the 2-hour limits are so much better than going 7-8 hours, right?
It is so much better because I can actually focus on you guys. I can focus on the guests that come on the show. And they say, hey, I can only be half hour. The show is done. As soon as the guest is done saying I'm done, the show is done. And it's great because what I found too, and I've had a couple comments recently, and I had an email, I think I forwarded on to you, Neil, saying that thank you. I missed the Twitter space. Mm-hmm. And I thought, like, really, seriously, please leave that. You know what I mean? Like, leave that alone. Like that was done.
Yeah,
but
for some reason you keep getting dragged into that again. I don't know
that's
why.
What I mean. It's that narrative of saying like we want it, and sometimes I do miss doing the Twitter Space show. It just became very very toxic at times. At times it was very, very rewarding though. At times there was times where some people would drop in that were unexpected and they took over. They literally hijacked it. And it became a shit
But this
show.
is why this roundtable is good. Awesome. This roundtable is kind of like in the spirit of the. It's kind of in the spirit of the open mics, but a little bit more downscaled, right? A little bit more manageable.
It is, and the thing is that great ideas, and we can have constructive ideas, and that's why I want to do a separate roundtable just for government accountability of. Yeah, like organizing, and I'm serious about that. I think we're going to each province. We'll get certain people in each province, and I'm going to get Jeff's help with this. If you know Jennifer, you've met Jeff a few times now coming across. I know that one of his plans is that he's going to have Sonia and myself join him on a tour. He has to raise funds through GoFundMe and through his charitable organization. So we're going to arrange the funds of going across the nation. I want to find a sponsor for our show here too, because that way I can actually, make arrangements, having a Neil joining us with us too. You take Jake with them too. Hey,
that's right. You know what? We've got about 20 minutes before the end of the show, so I thought we could start closing comments now to give everybody enough time. I know Dan's had his hand up for a while, so we'll give Dan the first dibs on comments, and we'll just go around to everybody.
Yeah. So I'm
gonna cut this here, right? Because first off, I didn't cut nobody off. I spoke at the end when somebody spoke. Secondly, I was sticking up for Miss Jama, a woman, a disabled woman, who was kicked out of the legislature for something that was not her fault. Okay. Thirdly, I have just sat here, and I'm going to be as nice as possible, but I've just sat here and heard my name. And I just watched as 3 other people interrupted each other, right? So this is not about that. Let's get that narrative out there. Dan's rude. I understand what Dan's going through. Ain't nobody in this room across this country anything understand what I've gone through, because the same thing that just happened to me a couple months ago just happened to Sarah Jama. There's a group of people that just don't give a fuck what you got to say, and they'll find any little thing to pin it on you. So I understand if Dan doesn't want to apologize. What do I got to apologize for? Sticking up for Miss Sarah Jama, who is a disabled person in a wheelchair? Or do I got to apologize for myself because I got fired because of what people wanted to say? People need to realize that I don't hate women. I don't hate Indigenous people. I don't even hate ideas I disagree with. There's one person I hate in the world, and they ain't sitting at this table. Okay, so I personally, as a 46-year-old man, don't appreciate coming onto a show and having people speak like that in that manner to me and then put me on blast like that. I'm here for the same fucking reason that everybody else is here. I want something done. I want something done now. I want something done for everybody. I don't give a fuck what walk of life you come from, okay? But the walk of life I came from after being homeless 19 fucking years, and to be talked to like this on a constant basis by people, I got a voice too. I'm going to speak up too. And that's what I encourage everybody on this show, whether you're watching or participating, to do. And lastly, this is a roundtable discussion. This isn't a debate at City Council. This isn't a debate at the Parliament Hill. This is a roundtable discussion where we bounce ideas off each other. And that's how we learn. And God damn it, I have learned, because guess what? I haven't gone to a single day of school for any of this shit. I learned through living through life like each and every one of you there. So I don't appreciate that being said to me. If I offended anybody in any way in that manner, I apologize. But if you go back and watch the tape, I think you'll see that it's at the end of somebody speaking. And I only apologize because MJ had his hand up first. So I don't appreciate being talked to like this either, right? I had to let that out because I want to show people she's right in one thing she said, Jennifer. You have to speak up for yourself. I got a voice too. I'm not afraid to use it.
Thank you on that, Dan. And one thing that I've learned, you know, on the podcast, on the roundtables, is giving people equal opportunity to speak. And I, you know, if I've offended, for me personally, if I've offended anybody on the roundtable, I would really like them to speak up, right, and say, like, yeah, you know, Brent, like, you cut me off, if I have, I'm really truly sorry. Like, I really try not to.
I cut you off all the time, actually, Brent. Like right now. but for some reason we still get along, so that's good.
Yeah. It's hard, but I want to throw that out there too, and I'm sorry, you know, Dan. I mean, if that has happened, I want everyone to have a really good experience on the podcast, on the show, as always, because we learn from each other. We learn from mistakes, maybe different comments that maybe. And I'll say, if I pronounce somebody's name too, I mean, my gosh, sometimes I'll have guests on and I'll pronounce their name wrong and I'll get it wrong. I'm like, no, don't keep trying, Brent. Just throw it out there. But I learn from you guys, and you learn from me. I learn from you. I learn from advocacy. One thing I have learned, and I'm going to make this very quick because I want everyone to have their turn of the roundtable of our discussion at the end. All I've learned is that we need to, I guess, have action, holding the government to account. But yeah, because you're right, Jennifer, totally right on that, is that it's like they're a big corporation. The government's like a corporation. They don't give a shit, right? There's a swear jar, Brent. Throw it in. Yeah, but it's true. But they have to be held accountable. How do we do that? I guess I'll be on our next roundtable one that we're going to have is government accountability. How? I don't know how. There's a lot of ideas out there. Is there lawsuits, whatever we're going to do? I don't know. So I want to hear from different people on that when we organize that roundtable. And it's going to be concrete discussions, but being ourselves. And that's what it's about. It's about lived experience, being ourselves, of ideas that we're going to throw out there. But I do know is that all we have to do is keep trying, you guys. And that's the narrative that we've been saying today. We need to try. We need to try to push for immediate help now, but at the same time, try to communicate with and advocate the best way we can. So anyway, that's all I want to say. So Dan and Jennifer, if I could reach out, you guys, like, come on, like, give you a hug. Like, come on.
There's no need to apologize to me, man. You guys are great and everything.
Okay.
If you notice, somebody left the room as soon as they were spoken back to. This person fucking was one of the ones that caused me shit too, okay? I'm going to be blunt and straight with everybody just this one time, okay? And I cut my mouth. I shut my mouth here all fucking day. And all I heard was Dan. And there's nothing on Neil. There's nothing on Brent or MJ or anybody else. Everybody's great. Even if I don't agree with some ideas, I'm here to listen and learn. That's why I fucking came to 5. Not 1. I didn't come here to cut out anybody and then jump out of the fucking show, okay? So I apologize if I blew up a little bit there, but I have a right to defend myself too, right? When people block me and people talk shit about me and then they come on to shows to try to get reactions like this, Now go back to Twitter, and I guarantee you're going to say, oh, damn, the fucking asshole, and this, that. I don't give a fuck. People got me fucking fired, and I was trying to work like we all are here to work together to get something done. And those were the exact people that fucking did it. So there you go, mic drop, boom. I'm sorry if I exploded, guys, and I look forward to all the closings.
Well, I've been sitting here quiet for the last hour, listening to all of this. And I'm going to be honest. I don't care about your feelings. We're adults. You're the master of your feelings. You need to control them, right? That's how I look at this. As an adult, we control our feelings and our actions and reactions to how things are said to us. And being an adult is a hard task at times when things are not going in the direction or conversation or what is going on that you like. Being respectful is even harder. And kindness in the face of disrespect is even the hardest thing to do. And I find that sometimes, even in all of this, when you realize that you can't do anything, the best thing to do is just walk away and just be done. Because for the last hour of this program, it's been an absolute and complete waste of time and energy. The discussion was hijacked and destroyed. And I'm sorry to say that we've wasted a valuable hour of our lives not dealing and conversing about the issues at hand. And that's truly how I feel about the current situation. And I wish we could get back to, for the past next 15 minutes, to get back into the discussion, if it's possible.
Can I speak for a moment, please?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to set the air clear, I was the one who interrupted Jennifer, because I was trying to quote Professor Zhao about something she said. And instead, she attacked Dan for the rest of the broadcast, and I never got to speak a word.
Yeah.
I have been attacked by her several times about how she is Indigenous and she speaks over me, and then she belittles me because I am not disabled. I have spent years advocating for this stuff. And if you're going to be offended because I want to speak up and correct a quote.
Yeah. This is the first time that it's actually, this is the first roundtable
I haven't spoken since she interrupted.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry, MJ. You can continue. That's my closing argument, is that she should have realized that she was blaming the wrong person.
I mean, we all come
because
here.
She's already done this to me with Dan before.
Yeah.
Guys, we all come here to try to solve the problems and try to come through, through all of this. I mean, and, we've got our own problems during the week that we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
I've been dealing with migraine headaches the last few days because I have herniated discs in my neck and I have to wear a CPAP machine. So when I sit here and I listen to all of this, it's like we come here, we put aside all of our pain and agony and all of our problems to come here to go and suggest ideas of how to fix society. We put aside our pain and agony just for a couple hours a week to go and put our best hat on, to go and put our brains in gear to come up with solutions. We really do, and, I appreciate the intelligence that comes to the table. We come from different perspectives. Mm-hmm. We come at this from different angles, So to me, if, we need to put aside our egos to be able to solve problems. And what we saw here was an excellent example of egos getting in the way. And unfortunately, this is how politics works. Egos are always paramount in politics. It does not matter which side of the aisle it is and which political party it is or who it is. There's always egos. And the only way to solve these problems is to put the ego down. That's really what I have to say. Brent, Neil?
Yeah. Thank you, MJ, on that. And wow, I'm so sad that you didn't get a chance to really explain that, Joseph. And yeah, I mean, what happened there? Just terrible. Because I mean, like you're right, MJ. It's over an hour that was wasted, right, of productivity, of the time of discussing about affordability, right? And that's what we were supposed to be really talking about. And
I don't mean to sound exclusionary, but I'm just going to recommend that this individual just not be welcome to the program if they're going to act in this behavior.
Yeah,
because
it was the first time for her on this roundtable. I didn't expect. I mean, if I had known, of course we wouldn't have invited her.
And I apologize, MJ and everybody else, if I upset you in any way and let my ego get in the way, so to speak.
No.
But the fact, I know, but the fact is that we have all done these roundtables, 4 or 5 times now, and there's never been one.
That's what I was going to say. As a producer, this is the first time that it's kind of gone south. I have to say, like, this is the 5th one, and the first 4 have gone without a hitch. Everybody's been super polite. I mean, everybody here has got very strong voices, right? We're all strong advocates, and it's really hard sometimes to have, and we've had like up to 9 people sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And it's a lot to try to manage all 9 voices that are really strong. But
especially when we had, as we know, Tom, so sad what he's going through right now, but he will be joining us either next week. Well, actually, maybe not next week, probably the week after. But yeah, and
thank you, sir.
But yes,
sorry, I stand corrected, Brent. That me and Jennifer have not had an argument on the live stream before. We've had arguments in your spaces on Twitter, where I will speak, she will speak, she blames me for interrupting, and then we have a big argument, and it goes on. And this has happened several times, and this is why I'm upset, because as an advocate, I am allowed to have my voice just as much as she is. Just because I am not disabled does not mean that I can't speak about disabled programs. Just because I'm not Indigenous does not mean I can't speak about Indigenous programs. I support all of them at the same time. But I am tired of being told that she needs extra attention over it, because it makes me feel like I am being degraded because I am not in her position. And I understand lived experience, but I've lived with a disabled wife.
Right.
I have disabled family members. Okay, I've been disabled temporarily in my own life. I've been in a wheelchair. I've been on crutches. I've been in scooters. I've been in, having a walker. I have injured my leg several times to the point where I can't walk for 2 months and use a commode at the end of my bed to take a shit. I know what it feels like. And so just because I am not physically disabled right now does not mean that I'm not defending my right from 10 years from now for this program. And that's what Canada needs to wake up and realize, is that 15% of Canada is going to retire in the next 10 years. You got 20% already retired. You got 22% disabled. Wake up, folks. 1 in 3 needs government help.
Yeah, and that's exactly what has happened. The governments have just let it go. They just decades. Oh, nothing to see here. Things will just keep going, status quo. Right, now we're to a boiling point where things have to change. Like now, they have to change now, not later, not decades from now.
The problem in Canada, any country really is that when you don't clean your house, it gets messy, and we've let our social affordability become a messy house, and no amount of foreign aid to this country, that country, or the other country is. It's like saying, I don't care my house is messy. I'll go to my neighbor and clean his house because I felt like it got something done. But I don't care that there's 30,000 pizza boxes in my foyer, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is that now, metaphorically speaking, Canada's become this big hoarder house of issues. And affordability has been let go. No one's put the trash out. No one's vacuumed. No one's washed the windows. Whatever. I came to this open mic because I wanted to talk about affordability. And my question in my mind is, when it comes to the Canadian disability benefit versus this GIBL thing, which is likely to get greenlit and which is likely not to get greenlit, or are neither going to get greenlit? And that's kind of what I wanted to take away from coming to this. Well, that's my closing statement.
Bill C-314 is law, which means, Alan, the candidate disability benefit is going to happen. What amount or what it looks like is to be determined, but it will happen. Now, GLBI, will that happen? We don't know yet. Do we want it to happen? Most definitely. But which size are they going to use? What conditions are they going to use? Yeah. And that's the ultimate conversation that the Senate, the House of Commons, the provinces, everybody has to negotiate on, because they are right. There is jurisdiction. The provinces have the jurisdiction over your health and welfare. They are supposed to provide for you if you cannot provide for yourself. But do they do it? Half-ass. Yeah. 3/4 full, a half full glass, or however the hell you want to call it.
They're sweeping up they're sweeping up the counter, but
right. This
is sweeping the counter, but
we need to treat social assistance just like infrastructure. If we don't invest in the people will not do well. They'll fall apart. They'll crumble. They'll need to be replaced. Guess what? We can't just replace them like girders and steel.
No. Exactly.
We need to make sure that we invest in our people, because if we don't start now, 10 years from now, when we do need to start, the price tag is going to be so big, we're going to scare everybody from doing it in the first place. And that happened before, and it'll happen again and again and again, because that's politics. Well, we need to stop right now and go, right now is the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of the, we'll see time gaps where, like in the 90s, for example, we can say Mike Harris was in Premier Ontario, and he said, not my problem, not my circus, not my monkeys, and I'm going to do what suits the corporate world best, and I'm going to take away rent control, and all yada, yada, yada. And it's premiers and leaders like him that have come and gone, but they've left such a legacy of damage in their wake that now we're catching up. Now we're having to send in the staff and unclutter the hoarder house that has become the shit show.
They're the exact reason why we need a federal program.
See, and the problem is, when you take a look at the entire provincial infrastructure with all these programs they've created, they're haphazardly created. And that's the worst part. Like from WCB for when you're injured, to welfare, to disability, to child benefits, to student loans, the list just keeps going on. Even public education is failing. We've got kids that can't read. The situation is getting worse. And this is why, to me, when I looked at the whole idea where I was coming from, is my idea was to give people enough money so that if they wanted to send their kids to private school, they could do that. Right? If the public system was going to fail, because everyone should have the right, with their tax dollars, to send these kids to wherever. And I believe in school choice as well. So if they want to send them to public school, that money that they would be paying, would go to public school. Either way, it'd just be a choice of location, right? And this is where, with all of these benefits put together, and you put things into perspective, then you have the ability to go and actually get things done. The problem is everyone wants to go and put needles into the pie and sit here and think that we can go and add more to it. And well, we need this amount of, we need more of this, and we need more of that, we need more administration. No, I mean, my problem is the amount of administration has gotten to the point where it's inverse. For the amount of money it's costing to go and provide the benefits, the cost of administration is costing more than the benefits in many cases, right? And this is the real problem and the crux of it. And unfortunately, people's jobs will be lost if a federal UABI or UBI or GLBI comes in. Unfortunately, this is just going to be the way it is.
Reality. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we're
jobs
talking.
Jobs are getting replaced anyway. When it comes to AI, how long before a social worker is no longer? How long before we get to a point where, let's say ODSP stands this test of time and it's around for another 10 years, or PWD or whatever, some provincial, it's going to get to the point where we're not even going to have a worker anymore. We're going to have a chat bot.
Well, exactly, right. We already.
I mean,
got that now.
they've already stepped into that with in Ontario with My Benefits.
Or you have
a minimum. You're more
beautiful
likely to log into My Benefit and leave your worker a message than you are to walk into the ODSP office. How long before there's no ODSP office? It's just a bunch of people working remotely.
Yeah.
My buddy makes $90,000. He sits there and he does tech support on a Linux platform for a company that doesn't even have a brick and mortar office.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all his whole company is 185,000 people, and they all work from home. There's no corporate office.
Well, you know how much money the corporation is saving?
Oh yeah.
Right? Do you have any idea how much money they're saving? People don't realize this work at home thing is it's a good idea. There are downsides and effects. And right now, there is a glutton of commercial real estate that is just sitting here empty, which, in my opinion, for some of these commercial skyscrapers that we have, they should just be gutted and refitted for apartments.
Absolutely. 100%.
Right? So that would be the fastest way to solve this housing crisis.
What we'll do is we're just going to do some ending comments just quickly, and then we'll end the segment. I think we might do a special broadcast if Neil's up for it or you guys are up for it for tomorrow, just so we can make up a little bit of time from today's episode if we're all for that.
It works for me.
It depends, because actually...
If we want to make it maybe a little bit earlier than today.
Yeah, I won't be until 4 p.m. because I've got I got an ODSP office meeting.
4 p.m. your time. So that's 1 o'clock our time.
It's hard for me because my wife comes home earlier on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so it does make it hard for me to swing it. But we can talk off air and
we can figure that out.
Something out.
Yeah. Okay, just over to Dan, and we can figure something out for sure. So Dan, I want to thank you, each and every one of you for joining in today. But I'm just going to hand over to Dan first. Any kind of final comments for today's segment? Then quickly over to you, MJ. Then Dan over to you, Ellen, and then to you, Neil, and then myself.
Yeah, just very quickly so I can yield my time to other folks. Thanks for having us here. Again, none of this is your issue. And to anybody that this either bothered or offended or anything, I'm sorry, right? Unfortunately, this is my life. This is what I go through every single fucking day, right? And it's pretty sad. But I agree with MJ where he says we have these discussions. Like we said, we've had multiple ones before. And if I've had nothing to say, I've kept my mouth shut, right? Because I'm learning. I'm listening. That's how you make it through the world and learn things, right? So again, anybody that's offended or bothered, sorry, but yeah, like if you guys want to have these discussions anytime, I'm agreeable to whatever you guys decide here. But just for the audience out there, just be informed. Know that you do have rights, and know that there are differences of opinions, but there's a middle ground somewhere where we can all affect positive change that will be beneficial for all of us. So thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. As always, I'll keep you informed, and we'll talk off air on. We'll arrange another session for sure. Yeah. Okay, over to you, MJ, and then quickly over to you, Ellen, and then over to you, Neil, and then myself, and then we'll be like sayonara until next time.
Okay, well, I'm going to just go and just have a little fun with this on the closing here. I mean, I'm more or less a libertarian when it comes to political points of views. I support a small government. I support an efficient government. This is why I support the idea of universally available basic income. It's take it or leave it. You flip the switch on or off. That's it. No problems. Why do we need people to go and tell us what we need and don't need in our lives? If we're going to be paying taxes, then we should have the ability to get emergency support if we truly need it without having to go through being told that we're just not good enough.
Thanks, MJ. Actually, then over to Ellen, then Joseph, and then sorry about that. I was just like brain fog. Then over to Neil, then and me, and yeah. So Ellen, you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what MJ said, and I think that it's not if there's a UBI or whatever they call it, but it's a when thing, and it'll be interesting to see whether the Liberals want to make this a legacy thing or not, or if they'll do it just to stick it to the Conservatives. Who knows? So we'll have to see.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ellen. Joseph. Calling on Joseph.
London
Joseph.
calling.
Joseph.
Oh, well, maybe he's just gone to the fridge.
Oh, he might have gone to the fridge.
I'm only a foot away from my fridge.
Yeah,
I don't have an excuse.
I just wanted to say again, as your producer, we've done 5 of these now, and I'm impressed. How well everybody gets along, considering, like I said, everybody's very strong advocates. Everybody's very strongly outspoken, and yet we've managed always, usually not to interrupt each other. I'm always the biggest I feel like I'm always the biggest culprit because I'm always interrupting you, Brent, all the time. But for some reason you never give me a hard time for it. But I just think we do a very good job considering how strongly opinionated everybody here is always on the call. We always do a really good job of staying respectful and giving each other time and space to get our points out. So from a producing point of view, I like that impresses me a lot. So yeah.
And that's while I wait for go ahead and just kind of interject with your comment on that, Neil, and then over to Joseph, and then I'll conclude. And then that's one thing I've learned when I used to do the Twitter space. Right, it was like listening very carefully at what people are saying, and it was like so many times like I'd have a guest on and then I would have to comment, and then of course it was like, okay, when can I comment, when can I jump in and actually say my comment without being interrupting the the guest, because as we know, I mean, the guest is always the number one, right? and it's so true, and it's just finding that time of interjecting, you're throwing your comment in there without cutting the other person off, and being respectful and not. And it's a learning curve for me. Like, it's finding out, and I'm learning from everybody else. And I mean, I find there's just no right or wrong way. It's so hard to, when you're having a group discussion of trying to jump in and somebody's talking, say Ellen's talking or I'm talking to us, and Ellen is saying something. I'm going, hang on, I don't want to cut him off, but one thing I have learned though with people in general is sometimes people like they'll have like something that's on their mind, and if they don't say it, they're gonna forget where they were at, and that's one thing that's so true, right? It's learning curves from people. And
well, that happens to me all the time. And I'm sure everybody here on the call, the reason why we sometimes interrupt is that if we didn't interrupt, then the point's already gone. Like you've already gone to another topic already. So
already left the station.
So if there is situations where we do interrupt each other, that's why, so that we can stay on topic, and it's a continual thread, and it makes sense. Like it doesn't make sense if I just let you talk and I let my point go or whatever, and then it's like, oh, like 3 thoughts ago or 5 thoughts ago I had a point, and then there's no continuity anymore, right? So
right, it's like when I talk about transportation, like I'll kind of rant a little bit and then I'll leave it, because it's like if I kind of say a little bit and then someone goes to somebody else and I continue on, so I'll say, well, wait a minute, where did I leave off? Oh, that's what he was talking about. Then they lose that kind of that thread. And yeah, so anyway, over to Joseph.
You guys, look, I want to apologize for ranting and raving and being mad at the end there. And admittingly, I think after I spoke, I kind of walked away for a few minutes, so I didn't hear much of anybody else afterwards. And I apologize. I was very, very upset. This is a big thing for me, because this is not the first time that this has happened and interrupted your show, right? And you have a point. Sometimes people like myself, we have a rebuttal to something that is being said in the room, and we want to be able to say it so that way it can become part of that conversation. I can't remember exactly what she was saying, but she said something and it was wrong, and I was trying to get in there and say, no, it's this. Professor Zhao said this, right, in regards to the Indigenous community, and she just went really upset and spoke over me and then went straight to her point, which was about, I believe it was about how everybody speaks about just Ontario. And it is a little offensive, because Ontario is a very large province. We have the majority of people who are on social assistance in Canada. Like,
Captain,
I don't know what the statistics are of each province, because it is very difficult to find them. And for me in Ontario,
on purpose, I'm sure,
I spend weeks upon weeks of refreshing screens and looking and waiting for just one set of demographics. And yes, it is the ODSP, because ODSP represents over 500,000 people.
Yep.
That's not a joke.
Yeah, it's quite a few people, that's for darn sure.
And what Doug Ford does to the disabled people of Ontario reflects how other governments do it upon others as well. Ontario leads an example for other provinces in this country. And if we don't hold Ontario accountable, then what is the point of even holding another province accountable that is nowhere near the amount of spending that Ontario does?
Or hoarding.
Yeah.
Hoarding.
Oh, yeah, you said, Alan. Because you know what? The push comes to shove. It doesn't take much to realize that when you look at the math of the Ontario government and their budgets, they tell you how much social assistance is in year A, and in year B it goes up. But meanwhile, the caseloads could even go down, or all their expenses could go down, or they froze rates so it actually should go down. But does it? No. It just is inherently more expensive.
Meanwhile, underground garages are being quietly talked about, while spas are being built by a company that doesn't even come in Canada. I feel like Ontario is seriously run by a mob. I really do. I hate that.
Well, it's not run by the mob. It's run by the consensus that the taxpayer is the right one to suit their budget. That just because the person pays the bills, they're the one that runs the show. Well, that's not the case, because guess what? statistically, Ontarians will spend more time on assistance in government programs than they will working.
Wow. It's crazy.
You spend the first 18 years of your life on baby bonuses if your parents don't make enough. So there's 18 years right there. When you retire over 65, what are you going to spend? 20, 30 years on government assistance there?
Mm-hmm.
That's over half your lifetime.
All I know is that I've heard a lot of people say this, and it's not just me, so I'm just guessing, I'm echoing it, but they're saying that this is the most corrupt government that we've ever had in Canadian history in one province.
Sure feels like it.
If you take the Greenbelt into effect and then all the shenanigans wrapped around that, and the fact that all the healthcare is being privatized. Oh, well, I guess the Ontario healthcare system is failing, so we'll just make it for profit so people can have a choice. It's just being...
Joseph, I'm going to send you some info, some stat info of an article. You'll find it interesting. Anyway, I'm going to...
You're going to give Joseph some numbers?
Yeah.
The roles are reversed there, isn't it?
Oh, that's new.
The numbers guy. It was just from the Tyee that came out with a report, but it shows you some social assistance numbers and stuff like that. So I don't know how up to date that is, but I'm pretty sure it's probably misconstrued a little bit. But yeah, it gives you a pretty.
You're not talking about the WIC report, are you? Because I've already seen that.
Yeah, I don't.
Welfare in Canada by Maitri.
No, that was just a which what was that? Sorry,
Tyee.
The Tyee. Yeah, I'm gonna send it over to you. Yeah,
well,
but
let's punch out though.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Definitely stay tuned for the next roundtable.
You're gonna say roundhouse.
I say this is a roundhouse, all right. This is a roundhouse.
Let's punch each other out.
Well, this is the
roundhouse.
It might be roundhouse if Jennifer and I both land up in the stream again.
All I know is I feel like a Ronin. I feel like a Ronin.
It's like...
I get she is a great advocate, and God bless her heart. She is a great advocate.
All right.
But sometimes it's almost like she controls the conversation.
Are we still partially?
No, we're still on.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
and that's what hurts. That's what hurts, though.
Yeah.
Is that it sometimes she can come across off as you cannot be that most important part of that conversation, and we're trying to express how we feel as well, and it's undeniably frustrating when you sincerely just want to give a quick point, but then you spend 20 minutes arguing over just coming into the conversation.
Right.
And I apologize, folks. I am an interrupting person. I most definitely am. You all have experienced that consistently over the time.
Remember that time that you and I did a show together, Joseph? That was fun. That was fun.
I remember the time Neil would tell me, I did the show with Joseph and Fred.
And I never knew how to politely interrupt because it was just like
I said, did you get a word in edgewise? It was hard.
It was a good show though. It was a good show.
But I said,
I am a bit of a big mouth.
But I told him, I said, Neil, when I did the open mics, I said, you can imagine. Oh my God, how did you do that? I go, it was interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's always awesome having you on too, Joseph, and we're gonna have you as a separate segment one day. And actually, you're up on Thursday, Alan. This Thursday.
I'll have to get my agent back to you. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
I'll bring out my camera gear and we'll compare camera gear together.
The reason
nerd out.
Last Thursday, and I actually had changed it because I was actually going to go to the hospital to go and visit Tom's his lovely person, the love of his life, and to go and do a hospital visit. And when I found out after, it was already too late to change that back of the scheduled cancellation. So that was my plan on that. So yeah, but I'm looking forward to having you on Thursday, and definitely everybody else who wants to join in onto the show, definitely reach out. And basically the I'll call it the Roundhouse Roundtable, right?
There you go.
The Roundhouse Roundtable. We're going to stay tuned for the next episode on that one. It'll be coming up soon.
I think I'm just going to
Thanks,
get like
everyone,
a Ronin signal tattoo.
Sorry.
Bye, everyone.
No master.
Then of course Siri says, "I didn't understand that. Can you please say that one again?"
Is it? It's kind of interesting how if you look at
Thanks,
the
everyone,
history
for
of
tuning in.
Ronin,
Bye, everyone.
how just
Thanks.